you can choose whatever you want. Like the world is an immense buffet table. Take what you want, enjoy it, but you don't have to criticize anything else. Like don't scream at the sardines just because you don't like them. It's just let them be. Let someone else enjoy them and carry on. So there's enough in this world for all of us to have our place in it, and we don't have to fight against it. Just enjoy.
Angela, welcome to the BookThinkers Life-Changing Books podcast. I'm super excited to chat with you today because this is going to be a unique conversation. So before I ask my first question, I'd actually like to read the introduction to your book, just so that everybody who's watching or listening to the podcast today knows what they're in for. So check this out. I'm going to read from it now. You can't look me straight in the eye and tell me you don't appreciate pooping, aka number two. And it's nothing about doing it or where you're doing it or the result. It's the feeling afterward. Even if you were doing the most enjoyable thing in the world, if you're constipated, the activity is less enjoyable. But when you have a total elimination, clean as a whistle dump, you feel like you can take on the world. And that's what this book is about. What a
There you
great
go.
introduction. Tell us, how in the world did you come up with the idea for this book?
I think, well, I do have a chapter in there about why I came up with it. And I just think it's been in my mental garbage dungeon. And I see the world through this lens. And so it's just been a lifetime of collecting stories on this, with this bent.
And so the original story, as I read it in the book, is that you grew up on a 10-acre plot of land, but your dad at one point decided he wanted to be pretty conservative about the toilet paper. And so he started rationing it. And that
Yep.
was really your first foray into being so aware of this bodily process that we all experience on a daily basis.
Exactly. And I can't blame him because apparently our septic pump kept getting plugged. So he just could not understand why. And he would almost listen as we went to the bathroom. And I'm a good girl. I was raised as a people pleaser, and I wanted to do the right thing. But my siblings, not that they're bad, but they would hit the toilet roll. You know how you go bang, 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 looking for the end. And my dad took it as they were taking reams of toilet paper, and it would drive him absolutely batty. They swear they were just looking for the end, but my dad thought this was the solution. So one square for number one and two squares for number two, and he stuck the toilet roll into his pocket and he went on his merry way, landscaping our 10 acres. So we had to anticipate when we had to go and what we had to do, and we had to dutifully report it to him, and he would give us the allotted squares, and we would, run back to the toilet and do our business. So yeah, it left an impression on my life.
We had a guest on this show a while ago, a year or two. His name is Matt Higgins, and he was talking about a lot of the trauma that he experienced when he was younger, but he said the benefit from experiencing that trauma was that he gained a sense of awareness that then became a differentiator for him, a competitive advantage over time. And in a small way, this is a similar story where you had this really awkward, probably traumatizing experience in some capacity when you were younger, but it created this lens through which you view the world that is entirely unique, viewing so many of these self-help and personal development concepts through the lens of our digestive system, which of course we're going to get in throughout the day. My next question for you is, I read later in the book that you didn't speak until you were about 3 years old. So I imagine this toilet paper fiasco and rationing happened after you were three?
It did, because I don't remember much before I was three, actually.
Yeah, I don't think I remember much before I was like 10, which is probably another conversation for another day. But
Yeah,
yeah, it sounds like a really unique experience. And now your dad did pass away in 2013, is that right?
that's correct.
And that sent you down a existential kind of question rabbit hole that ultimately led you to personal development. So My next question for you is about personal development. Who are some of your early influences? Like what were you reading? What were you listening to?
I think my biggest influence was Abraham Hicks. And I don't know if you've heard of them, but that was probably my biggest one. And of course, you come across the big names like Tony Robbins and um, Mel Robbins, and of course, Oprah. I mean,
Yeah, we'll talk
I'm the
about
era
Oprah
of
later too.
Oprah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you mentioned Oprah later in the book as well.
Yeah, because, everyone's got to poop.
Yeah, they do. It's the great equalizer, I think, as you say in that chapter of the book. And that's one thing that I think this is kind of a taboo subject, which is why you decided to write through this lens to wake people up, to get them to maybe stop and take a second look at the cover, which, by the way, I'll hold it up for our video listeners. You've got a pile of poop on the cover, which I don't think I've ever seen on a self-help book. But you're right, everybody has to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Uh, Talk about that. Does that make you less intimidated when you meet personal development celebrities or when you read about how great they are?
Absolutely. I know that, and actually, I think us little people have won over the celebrities who have to poop because if they've got to go to a public washroom, can you imagine, people I think Oprah even told the story of going into a public washroom and people all a Twitter because Oprah's in the bathroom, but she just wants to do her business and get out of there. Like you and I can just go in and do what we got to do and head out without anything. But yeah, it is no matter who someone is, and it goes both ways, whether it's someone who is down on their luck, someone who is striving for something, hasn't quite got there, or someone who's made it and has made millions. It's like we all have to do this bodily function, and how can we care for each other in that kind of weird way?
Yeah, it does cause you to care for each other in a weird way. I think my version of that story when I was growing up for a period of time in early high school, my parents had a neighbor who played for the New England Patriots. He's an NFL player. And my family got pretty close with his family. We'd go to the same church on Sundays, and my dad would actually drive him in a game sometimes. And he was just a normal human, and his family, they were normal people. But on Sundays, you would watch him on TV, and he was in Dunkin' Donuts commercials. And one time he got in a fight in a bar, and it was massive news for a week. And it's like, well, if my dad got into a fight in a bar, nobody would ever hear about it. But because of his level of stardom, you think about their family in a different lens. But I actually wrote my college essay that you use to submit to different colleges and universities. I wrote it about that experience of this very normal person who I thought would be very different than he was, but he just lived a normal life. And
Yep.
I love that lesson in your book.
Yeah, and these people have some extraordinary talents, but so does everyone else. And it's just realizing, fame is one thing and fame might be not be something you actually want, but it's everyone's special. Everyone's got their thing.
Yeah, yeah. Makes me think, his fame is because we value the talent that he has, which is a large body, and a lot of muscle. And it's like there's other periods throughout human history where that was not valued in the same way. And
Yeah.
humans are kind of funny how we
Yeah, we
assign value.
value weird things. Like we definitely value money, and the more money people have, we think that's where it is. That's where life is, and our achievement should go. But there's that saying of he's so poor that all he has is money, something like that. Because a lot of people who have money realize pretty soon that all the people that are around them who are close to them are people they're paying. So, yeah, there's more to life than money.
Yeah, I made that mistake when I first got into personal development, since we're still talking about your early days of personal development. I admired people who had money, and I think a lot of
Everybody
young
does.
people
It's
seeking
okay.
purpose, yeah,
Yeah.
you get into it like through that lens, but over time I realized that success is holistic. It's definitely not just financial. And yeah, you're right. I have tons of books behind me, Angela, where the author was financially successful only to realize towards the end of their life that they neglected their family and their relationships, their spirituality, their health, and
Yeah.
ended up regretting it. So, yeah, it's a good
Absolutely.
lesson.
Like there are so many personal development, what we call gurus, who you can see that they don't have their entire life together. Not that everyone ever does, and no, not for me to criticize, but like a lot of people are divorced. A lot of people on their second marriage or even more. And so you know that no matter what the outside looks like, the inside is another story. And I mean, that's a theme in the book as well, is that only you know what's going on with your digestive system. So it's the same with life. Only you really know what's going on in your life. Like, are you preaching to people to do, have this amazing morning routine, but you haven't done it for months? Like there's all this private, that's why personal development is so personal. And that's why your digestive system is so personal too. Like you don't normally compare notes with people normally. Socially frowned
Normally.
upon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's chapter 4. You kick off with and it sticks out to me because this was a great quote, but you said something like, you don't look in your neighbor's toilet bowl, so, focus on your own instead. And it's just this idea of comparison that we're talking about.
Yes, exactly. And comparison is great in terms of like look at other people to see what's possible. Because if you don't ever see anything that you don't know, how do you know what to want?
Hmm.
But if it ever makes you feel bad, that's when you got to check that at the door. That's when you really have to turn inside and say, hey, am I better than I was last year? What is my path that I can be on in order to get what this other person has? Because even though they have it, they had a path too. So it's like comparing their outsides to your insides, their end at your beginning. It's just an unfair comparison. So I always say use it to see what's possible and to want more. Wanting more is great. It drives us. It just gives us the goals to shoot for. But if you're using it to talk yourself down or say that, oh, I'm not good enough for something, that's when it's negative.
Yeah, I want to talk with you about the social media piece a little bit later because that's where a lot of that comparison happens. But who is the original personal development person that you were into again? Can you tell me their name? I didn't write it down.
Abraham Hicks.
Abraham Hicks. What did Abraham Hicks write, or what
Yeah.
did Abraham talk about?
Do you know Abraham?
No, I don't.
Okay. They and it's admittedly very strange, but it is a woman, Esther Hicks, who can hear infinite intelligence. So so she connects
I've heard of
and
Esther Hicks before.
yeah, so what they do is they get people together and they have a hot seat. You can come up and ask infinite intelligence anything. And she's connected and she will answer on behalf of infinite intelligence. Apparently, she doesn't process it in terms of thinks about it as she's doing it. So she listens to it afterwards. But it's and I grew up in a church and I was like, do not listen to channelers. This is all evil. But I was so curious about it because it just kept popping up when I was listening to YouTube, when I was doing my personal development. So I finally said, okay, I'm going to listen to this for like 2 minutes. If anything's weird or like they're asking me for money, I'm going to shut it down. And when I listened, it was the most loving talk I've ever heard. So, Abraham, so the entity has named themselves Abraham. And they basically just fully answer someone's question, and they don't let them go until they feel that their vibration is satisfied. So it's really weird, but it's also really cool. And so I took those learnings and I made it more logical because my background is engineering and I really needed my personal development to be something that I could understand because science is science is science. And when you see the links and you see that, okay, that could work out or that does make sense. And what Abraham was saying made so much sense that I just put it in different words and I created my own course that I'm teaching people, what I initially called it inner engineering. but now it's input into my relaxed productivity kind of brand.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I can see you light up when you talk about that experience. So I'm happy that I went back to ask about that. So Esther Hicks communicates with infinite intelligence, that being has named itself Abraham Hicks, and then communicates, answers questions, until the question has been answered and the frequency makes sense.
Yeah.
That's fast.
That
By the way, I love what you called
sounds
weird stuff.
crazy. It
I
sounds
love that
crazy.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's all about frequency. It's all about vibration. And as a scientist, as an engineer, there is a quantum field. Like we know that this exists. And Abraham kind of puts the words, gives me the ideas, and I research it even more. And there's also a huge influence on what I talk about is Joe Dispenza. And
Hmm.
he's actually proving all the stuff that Abraham talks about in his experiments. And I love that. I mean, he has access to all these amazing scientists, and that's my language. I just love Joe Dispenza as well.
Yeah, I've seen Joe present, and I read, what's his most famous book?
It's the
The
oh
greenish yellow
yeah, it's
cover.
the one with the person on the front.
Yeah.
I can't remember what's the title at the moment, but it
Yeah.
is a classic. Just I should Google it right now.
It is. Joe, I'm fascinated. And the thing that stuck out to me from that book was he talked about two groups of people. One only exercised in their minds, the other
Yeah,
exercised in reality. And the group that exercised in their minds built more muscle, which was just fascinating. And so I love that kind of stuff too. Well, listen, thanks for sharing. I always find like the early days of somebody's personal development journey really fascinating. What do you gravitate to? Why is it different? What's exciting about it? And how does it lead you to writing your own self-help book over time?
yeah, and then unfortunately, Abraham doesn't talk about poop, but so all of that stuff is just pure me.
Not unless you ask Esther questions and Abraham answers, and you ask about that question in particular.
Well, and the thought is that Abraham is available to all of us. It's, when you get in the zone, when you're writing, that's often what they will say. You are in connection with something bigger than yourself that is helping you write or do whatever. Run, when runners get in the zone, that's
Yeah,
uh that's almost pure meditation.
Angela, there's an author who's been on this show a few times. His name is Stephen Pressfield. Have you read The War of Art by Stephen
I
Pressfield?
have not.
He talks in the back third of that book about what he calls the muse, which is how do you, and he talks about the incantation of the muse from the Odyssey. How do you summon infinite intelligence and allow infinite intelligence to flow through you onto the page as a writer? And so that's his practice. Every day
Mm.
he invokes the muse, he allows the muse to flow through him, and he's written a number of books that have sold millions of nonfiction and millions of fiction copies. And it's one time I read him a quote back from his book. He said, "I don't think I wrote that." I said, "It's in the book." He said, "Yeah, I don't remember writing that." So that's the flow state that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I did have moments of that as well, when I go back and read my chapters, I'm like, oh, that one was good, but I actually don't, specifically remember. And I've just recorded the audiobook, so I've had to read it through the whole thing, and I'm just like, oh, I love that chapter,
Yeah,
but
the
not
book was
specifically remembering.
it's very well written. It's a lot of fun. I think that it's the antithesis to a lot of the dry self-help or personal development books that are written. And so it's definitely not a boring book. Can you, just as a way to share a little bit more content from the book, tell everybody about your family's trip to Somalia and
Oh,
what
yes.
happened when you decided to go out to a restaurant? Because when I was reading this, I could visualize the entire thing, and I think it's a great example of the lesson in chapter one, which is that the little things are the big things.
That's right. So my dad was a professor here at the University of Saskatchewan, and we had an exchange program with the University of Somalia. This is before all of the Black Hawk Down stuff. So I do feel privileged now. Like I know that country, before it all kind of fell apart, unfortunately. But we lived there. It was a fairly limited existence because we wouldn't leave our compound too much just to go to school. And we had a whole bunch of visiting professors come over for, I guess they were doing work at the university as well. I was about 12, 13 at the time. So, in order to save my mom from cooking for everyone, they said, well, why don't we all just go out to eat? And that was so exciting for us because we had never done that. So we went to this restaurant. It was outdoor, it was dark. It's a little bit equatorial, so not too much evening sun. And we're eating. I picked a spaghetti bolognese and we're all happily eating. And then when we got back, in the middle of the night, I could feel my stomach start to churn. And it was just like, oh, this is not going to be good. And just as I was making my way to the bathroom, I heard someone, banging on the bathroom door, which was right beside my bedroom, saying, are you going to be out soon? Because this is not, I am not feeling well. And the person inside was clearly not having a good time either. And basically, the entire house had eaten some sort of small bug that really caused us all to suffer pretty wildly that night. And we woke up, and I remember everyone slowly gathering on the deck, going, "Oh my God, what was that?" And we were all probably, three colors paler than we normally are. And that was the lesson of like small things are actually can be the big things.
What are some other ways that that represents itself in life?
Well, it's the little words we say to each other. When they say that nursery rhyme of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. They hurt more than sticks and stones. So it's the little things you can say to those you love that really makes their day. And they're the little words that someone may have said to you in your life that you will never forget because it hurts so much. So I'm
Hmm.
just encouraging people to, you know, take care of those little things. Um, and that also feeds into habits. The little things we do every day are eventually going to add up to who we really become. So are your habits supporting your dreams? There's so much, Nick.
When you said the nursery rhyme piece and then you said, cuts and broken bones heal,
Hmm.
but the words can last forever. I was like, I never thought about it like that. I probably haven't heard the sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt me in a long time, but I never thought about it through that lens. And I think you're entirely right.
Yeah. And it was just thinking of that nursery rhyme that even as a child, I was like, that's not quite right, is it?
Just to highlight another one of the great metaphors that you have in the book, because there are so many things related to the act of pooping. You have tips on how to avoid mental and emotional constipation. Can you share one or two of those?
Oh boy. Start me off. I'm just like, um, there's so many lists that I have in terms of how to not do something, how to do something else.
Yeah, I think one of them was like let things go.
Yeah, which is a reference to chapter 10 of, the whole letting go thing. Um, Let me see. Well, I mean, being constipated, we all know that being constipated sucks. So we have to do what we can. Okay, now it's coming back to me in order to get things moving again. So when you are constipated, you are not going to have the best moving gut immediately. It's going to take some time. So just when, for example, you're emotionally constipated, you can't say to a depressed person, hey, just be happy, because that's not possible. So, for instance, in chapter 2, it's the so emotional chapter. And it's like slowly move yourself up the emotional scale. And this is what I did. The biggest thing I learned from Abraham Hicks is that sometimes the best thing for a depressed person to do is to feel like they need to get revenge on someone.
Hmm.
because that is moving their energy. You can feel the depression is there's hardly any energy moving. But if they start to get angry, if they direct their anger at someone else besides maybe it's usually actually yourself you should be angry at, but directing it at someone else gets you going again. And
Yeah.
it's actually a good thing. So if you see someone depressed who is getting angry, this is good. And you have to encourage them to get angry, to get the energy moving. And then once you're angry for a while, you will actually get bored of it. So then you'll go to the next um, level, which could be frustration. Like I'm just frustrated with the way my life is going. And when you sit there for a while, then you start to maybe just feel satisfied or content or even maybe a little hopeful. When you start feeling hopeful, you actually start inviting the better feeling emotions in, and you will slowly move your way up to happiness and joy. But it's the emotional constipation, feeling stuck is just like look at the emotional scale that I put in chapter 2 and try to get to the next emotion. And that's where you're going to start moving again. But it can take some time, just like, you know, if you got the runs, you got to figure this out. It's not going to be um, solved in a few minutes.
Very true. Yeah. You need to heal the gut.
Yes, and you need to maybe introduce more fiber, look at your fiber water ratio. What are you eating? Are you just eating, Cheetos? Maybe include an apple once in a while.
Yeah, hopefully not if you're listening to this podcast. We've had far too many authors on talking about proper health and nutrition and talking against processed foods. But a Cheeto every once in a while never hurt
A
anybody, right?
Cheeto
Only in
can be
moderation.
happiness. A Cheeto could be
It can
happiness,
be.
like, and then that's another thing in the book is like sometimes you just need the variety because if you had your favorite food all the time, it's not going to be your favorite food anymore. And I also talked about, when I go to banquets for a long period of time, sometimes I just want a peanut butter sandwich. The joy of life is in the contrast. It's not achieving greatness every single day. If you need those moments of sadness, of anger, so that you really appreciate the joy and happiness that much more.
Yeah, I think so too. Contrast is an incredibly important part of, I think, achieving, like you said, joy or fulfillment or peace, because without anything to fight against, you said, every once in a while it's great to have a little bit of anger and pick an enemy and go
Yeah,
get your revenge because that'll get you moving. One we often think of ego as this entirely negative thing, but I think sometimes ego, focusing a little bit too much on self, it does drive action. A lot
I
of people
love
use
ego. Yeah,
insecurity, which is another form of ego, to have a really positive impact on the world. Like it's counterintuitive. It has contrast, but it's on one end of the emotional spectrum and it forces you to the other side sometimes.
absolutely. And, I often tell my clients, I was like, ego is good from the respect that it gives you personality. If we were all enlightened beings sitting on mountaintops in, robes and meditating all day, what is the fun in that? Like you have to have your own personality because what you love is different from what I love. So how and you start looking into different niches and you're going, I can't believe someone invented that. But thank God they did. Someone had an interest in the most obscure thing and they created it and there it is, just in case you need it. What I'm thinking about right now is, the health industry. My daughter just had a minor surgery yesterday, and they have these special, so eye patches or, those things that you can, I don't know, support your healing, which who thought of that? So
Right.
it's one of those embrace your ego for where it takes you because your path is going to be different from mine. And that's what we're all here for is to be the best us, be our best selves to further our interests and the world.
When you talked about the enlightened beings thing, I always have a visual in my head that I've probably heard or read in different places. But if the universal consciousness is this amalgamation or this group of individual entities that's all interconnected and it all exists elsewhere on a different plane, and somebody taps one of those entities on the shoulder and says, "Hey, want to go on a wild ride and be a human being and experience all of the emotional contrast that life has to offer, which includes a lot of suffering, but also joy and fulfillment and exhilaration at a level that you probably don't get to feel when you're in that,
Yeah,
enlightened plane." That's the point, is to feel all of
yeah,
the feels. Like you're here, maybe you didn't choose it in this version of consciousness, but like you're here to experience all of what life has to offer. And so when you expect that that's going to happen and you know it's part of the process, it doesn't weigh you down as much.
yeah. And I think it gives you sort of the encouragement to just go out there and do stuff. Because if you're a spirit, this nebulous mist floating on some plane, you can't stub your toe, which is maybe a good thing, but you also
Or
can't
poop.
taste, yeah, you can't taste the best chocolate in the world. You can't hit a baseball. Like all of those things are human things, and it's beautiful to be human. So what I like to think about is, this huge entity, as you said, that combines basically everyone who's ever been and whoever is. And we are just like little fingertips that come down to the earth, and we're in our bodies, but we're actually a part of the whole. So if you can imagine, let's use the term God, but that's been kind of mutated by humans. But what if God was just trying to, forward the world or experience life, and we are each a finger of that experience. So it's beautiful to think that way. And it gives me the courage to like, I'm just gonna try this because probably, some God wants me to try it. Like, why not? And it also helps in negative feelings, like feelings of failure or whatever. It's like, no, it's okay. I just learned something, so let's try again.
Yeah, and in the same way that you talked about every celebrity, Oprah included, has to poop, like I think I've become less judgmental and more empathetic over time when I realized that everybody was once a baby and everybody's
Yeah.
eventually going to die. And we're all conditioned and nurtured in environments that we didn't necessarily choose. We're all also part of the same existence in some capacity. And so, whether you believe in one side of the political spectrum and I believe in the other, or you curse a lot and I don't, or you love self help and I don't, like, we're all part of the same thing. We all began and we're all going to end in the same place. So might as well have some compassion and curiosity rather
Yeah.
than harsh judgment and, inspect each other's toilet bowls, like you say.
Well, and that brings the metaphor of the buffet table, that everyone you can choose whatever you want. Like the world is an immense buffet table. Take what you want, enjoy it, but you don't have to criticize anything else. Like don't scream at the sardines just because you don't like them. It's just let them be. Let someone else enjoy them and carry on. So there's enough in this world for all of us to have our place in it, and we don't have to fight against it. Just enjoy.
Let's do a final flush here. You end each chapter in the book with a final flush. We're getting towards the end of the podcast. If your book, Angela, was deleted, but you could leave the world with just one simple message from it, what would that message be?
Oh, you don't want it to be like a piece of poo with a ribbon on it? Well, I guess it's just be yourself. Just celebrate who you are because there is no one else like you. And as I was writing the book, I remember just like thinking, this is actually a love letter to my mom because she cared enough about my digestive system to worry about it. And so also I close the book of saying, think about who nurtures you, who nourishes you, who cares that you are full. And in turn, who do you care has enough to eat or who has good things to eat? Because the digestive system in the end represents love to me. It's a very pure, wonderful connection that we all share.
Yeah, it does. I have a 9-month-old baby, and
Oh,
he,
congratulations.
thank you, and he cannot feed himself. Well, at
No.
least not well. And so you're right. It's a form of love, keeping him well fed and, uh, food, like feeding him is such a present experience, every morning and every night, you know? So yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it.
Well, thanks. That's what sort of evolved out of writing the book for me. So, and it was a little bit of a surprise as well.
For those in the audience that haven't gone to the caption yet to grab a copy of your book, where should they go? How do they get a copy?
I've made it available everywhere. So they can go to Amazon, of course, but it should be available wherever you can buy books. If you have a local bookstore, they can order it. Um, yeah. If you can't get it, then you're not looking hard enough.
It's a good challenge. I like that.
Yeah, and it's an ebook, paperback, hardcover, and the I just finished the audiobook, so that's in post-production, as you say.
Well, good, 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 good. This has been a great, fun conversation. I was a little intimidated by the book, I think, when I first met you, but I was like, I'm open to this challenge. And now I can't, by the time that this episode goes live, the video review for the book will have gone live on social media. But Angela, I'm excited for you to see me get outside of my comfort zone and how I'm choosing to film the video. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Hooray. Well, thank you so much, Nick. It's been a pleasure and a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has.